Hey guys, welcome back to Raw Influence. And this is episode 7 on the podcast. Looking forward to this one. It's going to be absolutely mega. If you haven't, check out the previous episode with Rebecca Jackson, the pro racer, where we was discussing absolutely everything from the male stigma in the racing industry to how the whole racing scenario is changing through YouTube and so on and so forth. In the episode, I've got some interesting guests. I've got Ben back on this episode, and you'll find out why shortly, just because it's a bit interesting with Ben's background and the guest that we've got on. So I'm going to hand over to Ben, actually. Go on, you go first. I'll let you do your brief intro of your background. Go on. 30 seconds, not life story.
So I'm Ben from the Real Forex Trader. I now work at Wild FX. My background is in the military. So I have been across the world to some of the places that our guest has been, just in a slightly different capacity. So it's been quite interesting to see the two different sides of it.
Awesome. There we go. And can my special guest please intro himself?
Hi, Sam. Thanks so much. Ben, I had a funny feeling you were military. You can't quite take it out. Thanks for having me. It's brilliant to be here. Excited to chat with you guys. Following on for some incredible stories over the last few podcasts. I am an explorer and entrepreneur. I've spent the last 20 years traveling the world, and I've always tried to tie in my adventures into creating some kind of social impact. I started a school in Kenya in 2007, which is now in its 12th year, a centre of excellence for teaching in the highlands outside Nairobi. I made a couple of attempts on Everest, motorcycled around most of the world, and I'm currently preparing to be the first person to walk down the Congo River. All of that as the pressure of growing older without yet a wife or kids is starting to grow, and so trying to manage a normal life as well.
I was debating. I was sitting there thinking, is this guy single? I was even though he's had a big argument at home. It's like, right, I'm going for a walk.
I'm taking my bike and going to a run.
It's definitely sort of cast a shadow over any dating efforts over the last couple of years. This is going really well. So when are you off? How long are you going for? A year?
Yeah, I'm just passing through.
Yeah, everywhere.
So where does this whole journey start? First off, where did you said you started in 2007 traveling?
No, I mean, so my journey, and we touched on a bit earlier when we were chatting before, was going to be a pretty standard one. I was going to go into the army. I won a scholarship when I was 14 going on 15, but it guaranteed me a place at Sandhurst. And so basically at that point, I stopped thinking about any other career path. Yeah. Did my A-levels, did university, and I went to get my final medical before going to report, and they failed me for having psoriasis. Okay. This despite the fact they knew this for many years, but the rules changed, and they basically said, if you've got it, you're done for. And that was it. Appealed it, got rejected again. And that was it. 22 years old. Suddenly the one thing I'd ever wanted to do was closed down for me. And, it didn't really hit immediately how difficult that was going to be to come back from. Because I don't think I realized at that age what it encapsulated in terms of physical challenge, mental challenge, the kind of people I wanted to be around, the kind of missions I wanted to be, involved in, actually having a sense of mission, I think, at all. But within a couple of years, as I was just starting to kind of feel my way, it was obvious that this was not going to be easy to overcome. And I'd just done a business degree, had no interest whatsoever of going into the city, following all my peers in there, and luckily kind of just followed my instinct and just started traveling. And it was really, it is an arc that has brought me to the point now where I'm, a short time away from trying to go and walk down this river. But it started then, and it started with a massive setback. And it kind of, I think the greatest insight from that was what it could look like to be disappointed with life. Until then, I'd had a completely just cruise it. I worked hard, but it was completely smooth. I knew what I wanted to do. Worked hard. Got my degree. Played lots of sport. I was going to go into the army. I was going to spend however long in the army, and everything was rosy. And suddenly, you're on your ass for the first time ever.
It's weird you say that because not only you wasn't medically discharged, were you?
No. So my career came to an end basically because of a knee condition that I developed, and I wanted to be in the army since I was since I can remember, and for me, my career came to an abrupt end because of an injury, and like my world came to an end very quickly, and I was lucky that somehow the Real Forex Trader came out, and it all just lined up perfectly. But it hit me hard for my final year, and I was struggling. Like, and I know what it's like to have that.
You was there 10 years or
12? So I got out. So I got out just after my 12-year point, and so I'd spent from 17 to 29, like my young adult age, all in the military, and I didn't know what I was going to do because my whole career plans encompassed the military. That was it. There was nothing else. So it's meant to think that you had your scholarship to go to Sandhurst. You had that all set up, and then.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've, even to this day, struggled to find is the kind of person that I like to be around. Funny enough, my older brother just recently retired, having led having been CEO of a services charity. He retired as a colonel from the army, and he then went on to do this, where they would take soldiers that had been invalided out through injury, and would do adventurous training exercises with them. And their focus, their mission was to recreate the lost sense of camaraderie and group spirit. And I led a group up Kilimanjaro a couple of years ago. And just, it was like that 10 days was like the best I'd had for such a long time, because they were just like such good people. And for me, that was almost the hardest thing. And I've got a close group of friends. But if I look, the commonality between them, they all have this something there, like a little kind of spark of something extra. And I talk about like adventurous spirit. We talked about this before. Like, I honestly think adventurous spirit is manifested in so many ways. Like, you coming and starting your own company and running it to this scale and success is massively a manifestation of an adventurous spirit. And I'm sure that there's so much what you must have felt along your journey, which I would feel like would have been incredibly common feelings from, going and doing a bloody great climb. It's the same sense of pushing yourself out on a limb, but it's just about I think that's the thing I miss most is the kind of people you want to be around, like special people.
Yeah, it's almost like if you did, the term that I would use is, it's almost like you're just not settled for, it's almost like, there's the way to the shops, but actually, do you know what, I'm going to go my own way, and I'm just going to go this way because it may be an interesting journey. And it's what you find on the way. I think so many people are so focused on the end goal. It's actually just the trip in itself. You're like, I bumped into this person, met this person. What an insane journey it was. And it's that makes the difference over, to be like a real simple terminology, people walking up Nevis, bumping into a Roman. That's probably a memorable part now of that person's climb, to be like, I'm not joking, I actually ran past a Roman up Ben Nevis. No, you didn't. Look, I got a picture with him.
Yeah, Ben Nevis shared it like the things you see on Nevis. I thought it was like quite a funny thing to do. Apparently, like, it's not done. People don't do things like that.
Yeah, people down the bottom of the mountain were talking about, did you know there's a guy up there dressed as a Roman? And as he was coming down, some of the Scots was like, never seen that before. And you sit there and you think, it is those small things that make the difference along the journey. What I'm interested in is, so you basically hit the wall of, okay, everything I've trained for, everything I wanted to do is now not an option. So did you think at the time it was rebellious to go exploring, or did you think, I'm going to go find myself? What did you think? You just thought, no, I'm just going to go? Not
at all. It wasn't in any way. It was never conscious. Certainly no sense of rebellion. It was just purely like instinct. I never forget when we lived in the country outside Cambridge, and one of the things that kept us occupied for 7 years as growing up was digging this massive tunnel network under our back garden, quite a big back garden, and it ended up literally being sort of 40 meters of underground tunnels. We had a prison, we had a central heating system, it was all set up like so my dad, I guess a bit logical prelude to this was that my dad was a renowned escaper during the Second World War. So he was a tunneler, and he was, just had a world record for the most number of escape attempts from prisons, German prison and war camps. And much to his horror, we decided, we're obviously inspired to go and start digging tunnels. And him having been buried alive a few times was not keen on this. But one time we filled our entire tunnel network in again, and we went out and dug the whole thing out again. So but I do remember. But I remember we sold that house, and I remember a mate of mine who we'd done all this with, and he goes, "Well, I guess that's all our adventure over with." And we were 18 at the time, and I remember thinking, no way. Just from a gut level. And so that's all I can say is, like, it was a gut level. I just couldn't accept that this wasn't going to be a part of my life. So at that time, it was kind of just instinctive. I'd save up money. First time out, I was lived in the back of a Peugeot 205 for 6 months outside Oxford, and would worked labouring on a building site in the day, did security at night, and then worked for Sky TV counting tackles for the rugby on the weekend, and just pocketed every penny, and then saved up, went out to India, did some climbing out there, came back and did it again, just kept going to build up that experience. But I didn't have any kind of blinding vision of what I need to be doing at that time, but it was just like relying on that instinctive sense I had to keep moving. The other big thing that happened all at the same time, so 1998, 99, was that my dad was paralysed in a car crash, and my parents had just moved down to France, and he was quite old. At that point, he was 78. And so suddenly, I got rejected from the army. My dad was paralysed, stuck at home in this miserable half-renovated house. My poor mum was then stuck in the house looking after him 24/7 for 13 years, it ended up being. So that all kind of led over. And strangely looking back, I think what it gave me between the two things, it was a dark time, was just this absolute rabid determination to go out and get stuff done. Because it was either you go underprepared, underfunded, undertrained, under-equipped, wherever it might be, and get it done, or you just stay here and you sink, because it was pretty dreadful. And I look back and it was, I was just building a website yesterday for something else, but I just came across a picture of me saying goodbye to my dad as I went to motorcycle down to South Africa and back. Hey, I was absolutely bricking it.
So wait, we cycled to South Africa?
Motorcycle.
Yeah. That's still crazy. Yeah. My business partner, Matt Wright, he's from South Africa in Cape Town, and he was working in a Citibank in Central, and I believe he drove his Land Rover Discovery from Central London to South Africa. Brilliant. And his wife was on a plane home, and he says, I'm probably going to be a little bit longer.
I love it.
And it documented his journey and his journey back. And it's that kind of stuff, though, is the crazy source that I would say that makes life. It's those things that, what you must look back on now from your journey. You must sit there and think, I'm sitting here thinking, how the hell you funded this? But you're basically saying you jumped in the deep end, you went for it.
Well, from that point of view, it was, I didn't fund it. I saved up $3,000, which was about half as much as they reckon you needed to go one way, and I went down and back again. But for me, that equaled certain things. I wasn't going to eat very much. I was going to sleep rough, which I did 2/3 of the night, 2/3 of the nights of the trip. I'd obviously have zero safety net. I was going to go underprepared. So I went wearing a pair of jeans, a pair of slip-on trainers, a T-shirt. I had a helmet. I never registered the bike. I bought fake license plates for it off the internet because I couldn't afford to do the registration. Still haven't got a motorcycle license. I just kind of took a sheet of black plastic as my tent. But went, and I could easily have spent $3-4 on equipment and all the rest of it. But there was at that point, I didn't have that money. I didn't have that money. And it's like, what, go like this, make it work. Didn't have any time. I didn't stop. I didn't go and look at touristy stuff, but I went and got this trip done, 4 months to go 35,000 kilometers on a bike that, it was actually far too much bike for me. I was a terrible bike rider. But I did it, and came back 4 months later, almost hypothermic, as I got back a bit later than expected in November, covered with rain, and had no warm weather gear, but I did it. Walked in the door, said hello to my mum, had a cup of tea, and that was done. And that, honestly, doing it like that, and there's a balance. There's a point where under preparation is just daftness, right? But there's a point where you think, I've got just enough, and I know what I have to bring to the table to make it work with those under-resourced. So I knew I had no problem sleeping in the bush every night. Although I do look back now, because everyone says, weren't you afraid of lions and stuff? And I was like, no. But I look back now, I think, why wasn't I afraid of lions?
Maybe there was one.
I wasn't thinking about lions until you mentioned
it. Exactly. It's probably good that no one asked you that before you went.
Remember, there was one night right towards the end, luckily, in Mali, and I got set up. It was lovely. It'd been a miserable, drive through West Africa. And the rain, it hadn't stopped raining for like 6 weeks. I was constantly wet and miserable, and come out into just below the Sahara, and it was beautiful, and it was warm, and it was just lovely. And there was this lovely like grassy knoll, and I set up pulled the bike over, I set up my little kind of tent, and I was just sitting there happy. And this old shepherd came along, taking his sheep back to the village, and he goes, "Oh no, you shouldn't stay here. There's loads of lions." I was like, "Oh God!" And I didn't have any weapons. The only thing I had was I had my I put the bike on its side and kind of slept with my head underneath the bike so that it wouldn't take my head off. And then I had my bottle of spare petrol and a lighter. And my idea was if a lion came along, I was going to squirt it with petrol and light it. But that was probably unrealistic.
Yeah, that's ambitious, very ambitious. Did he offer you a place to stay, or did
I'm sure, honestly, I'm sure he would have done. I just couldn't be bothered to repack my bike. It,
so you stayed there?
Yeah, I just stayed there. Yeah. I had my little knife, my knife and a bottle of petrol.
Oh my God.
But the incredible hospitality around the whole continent. It's one of my big kind of, one of the things I want to bring back from Congo in terms of a story is just as a place, there is nowhere warmer than Africa. And a trip like that, it's interesting we talk about craziness and like going these crazy trips. Like the thing that was most dangerous on that trip, without a doubt, was traffic. Like the thing that was going to kill you, and things I'd get up every morning and remind myself, the thing that's going to kill you, Toby, is getting hit by a truck. It's not going to be gorillas. It's not going to be, robbers. There's nothing dramatic like that. It's going to be something really basic. South Africa was a bit different, a bit kind of I felt a tension there, but everywhere else it was just amazing. I felt, I can remember coming back, and I came back to London and went out, the night out with my friends. They come out of the club at 2 a.m, everyone's hammered, and it's just like that really hostile feeling in the street. And I honestly felt more aggression and risk on a street in central London than anywhere around Africa. So I think one thing I've always taken, and again, this is where you have to apply judgment to that, is that so often it's in the perception is more frightening than the reality. Now that doesn't mean you go and drive through Afghanistan necessarily in the middle of the war without taking precautions, or there are some places where you have to be really sensible, but for the most part, like a lot of places are nowhere near as frightening in the reality.
Because in looking just through your Instagram, you do look like you go through hostile areas.
I've been to lots of places that had name, like, again, this might be,
sometimes just carry media, but...
Yeah, I think that's part of it as well. For sure. Like take Congo, for example, and one of the key things my team and I want to do is to provide a counter narrative to what makes headlines. And it's not to say that those headlines are incorrect. That is what makes news, but it does paint a very one-sided picture of an area and a people. And particularly, I've worked, hand in hand with, Kenyans in particular. But spent a lot of time with other African nations. You feel like that's doing a disservice in a moral sense, in a practical sense. People don't go to Congo on holiday because they assume everywhere is, it's an impossibly dangerous place to go. It really isn't. There's some very isolated places which are very dangerous and you shouldn't go. But there's a lot of places that have been incredible, and that would be incredibly valuable to the country to go there. Iran, if you're talking to my, to US friends, Iran is pariah. Iran is hands down my favorite country I've ever been to. Really? Loved it from start to finish. It just was magical. And yes, the leaderships, it can at times be seen to be pretty poor, but on a personal level, ground level, absolutely magical. And I think it's really important to bring those stories back, to provide those alternative narratives. And it doesn't have, it has to be nuanced. Like, you can say there are bad things and good things, but my experience has been 99% of the time amazing.
Did you have any issues entering any of the countries?
It's an art in itself, for sure. Like really? Crossing borders is an art and a science, and then and it's definitely takes some planning. And yet weird, you get strange little kind of vignettes. To go to Sudan when I was driving around, if you were heading south-north, you couldn't get a visa, or it's a 3-month wait, or it's a 6-month wait. So you come in Sudan, or you're trying to get it from the UK before you left. It's bloody impossible. You go to the consulate, the Sudanese consulate in Cairo, as you're coming south, 3 hours. I actually got an hour and a half. I sat in the waiting room and they stamped the passport for me. It was so random. The one that almost did me in was Angola, and they just would not give me a visa. And I was sitting in Namibia, in Windhoek, going out of my bloody mind because there wasn't really any way. Angola's a massive country, and there really would have been almost no way to block around it. because it was a rainy season in Congo, which means all those roads are impassable. And it was basically, I'd come all this way. I'd come all the way around down South Africa, was coming back up through West Africa, and just wanted to keep momentum up, just I was pretty tired by that time. Just wanted to keep momentum up, and they just wouldn't give me one. They just would not give me one. And I got to the point where I was literally almost begging. And I still don't know quite how they gave me one, but I got one. I got super excited, got on my bike, literally that same day, get across the border. I was a bit nervous. Angola is a place which has that kind of, back then particularly, it wasn't that long after the end of the Civil War there, and it turned out, of course, to be an amazing place, just wonderful. But that time I was a bit nervous, get across the border, get stuck in, get started, and just got across the border. It was amazing. Went about 150 kilometers and got hit by a truck and was then put out of action for 8 days. So, so that was a bit funny, but that was in terms of visa stuff, that was the worst for sure. Oh, until I got back to Morocco. Then I got back to Morocco. I was going to cross from Mauritania into Morocco, and all these fake plates and fake registration and stuff. No one cared less about that for the entire round. I mean, they don't know what's a fake registration. Morocco, of course, gets loads of European visitors, and the bloke at the border was super switched on, and he spotted everything was completely non-legit, and it was extremely touch and go whether I was even going to get across that border. So that was a bit dodgy.
And how, you got hit by a truck?
I got hit by a truck.
I got hit by a truck it's nothing. Yeah. Let's go back to that little bit where it said I got hit by a truck. It was funny.
So it was a really good day. So I got across that border. I was so relieved to have gotten across this border. The roads. Angola had this long civil war, and it famously had something like 20. I don't know for sure, but something like 25,000 kilometers of roads, of which by the end of the Civil War, 200 were left. It was completely destroyed, but it made for amazing riding. It was just beautiful riding. People were lovely, and I just felt super comfortable. I was cruising along. Okay, good day under the belt. But all the bridges were bombed out as well. Had been destroyed in the war as well. Yeah. So everything was just these one lane pontoon bridges, temporary things. And I just came down a steep bank onto the bridge, going across, and this truck, this construction truck, came down and just came plowed straight into me. Didn't stop, and luckily, just kind of winged me rather than took me head on. But it smashed the front of my bike up and smashed my shoulder up, and incredibly, it all worked out. It worked out pretty well. It turned out it was a Chinese company that Chinese have been doing masses of big structural investment in Africa. It's a Chinese company, big gang of 200 ex-prisoners, 200 serving prisoners on two year placements in Angola. The Angolan police turned out to be amazing. They confiscated their truck and said you have to pay him for everything. You have to repair his bike, you have to make sure he's all right, you have to look after him for the next 2 weeks or however long it takes.
I bet he was loving that. I couldn't leave the country. Of course, my bike, I got this random, fairly rare brand of motorcycle, which is stupid. I should have got a Yamaha or something. There's everywhere. So it's a KTM, which is fine if you're up in Europe, but down there's only 4 dealers in Africa, one of which luckily was in Namibia. But I couldn't leave the country to go and get what I needed from Namibia, so I had to send somebody down there. I only had a 1-entry visa for Angola, and this bloke, he was such an incompetent guy. He literally went. It was a day-long journey each way, so each round trip was 2 days. It took him 3 journeys to get this one simple piece of stuff from the KTM dealer. So it was all very stressful, and but it was an incredible experience. Actually, looking back at it now, I look at you looking about with a kind of slightly rose-tinted gold, which was amazing because I was there with 200 Chinese prisoners who had been over there for this period of time building roads and stuff, and they were super nice guys. I mean, I don't know who was a murderer or what, but they were really nice. They were really nice guys. Have you ever thought that you just have no boundaries to who's a nice guy? Because every single person that you just said is and they were really nice guys, and he was a really nice guy. It's there was 200 murderers there, and they was all lovely guys.
Sent to Africa on prison, but nice guy.
Yeah. So was your shoulder okay, more importantly?
Yeah, it was very painful. There was no doctor. There was nowhere to go for it, but luckily it was okay. We ate Chinese food, incredibly good Chinese food, for 2 weeks. Everything's shipped over, everything's shipped over. And I remember by the day I was leaving, I was so fed up with Chinese food. And then it was funny, that night, I left early in the morning having had fried rice for breakfast. And by that night, there was nothing to eat. And I remember lying there at night, so hungry, wishing I could have some fried rice. It was like, it doesn't take long. But it was great. It was great fun. It was an amazing experience. There was we had these great training sessions where they used all these, what I hope were I assume they were decommissioned. Angola had terrible mine problem. Prince Harry was down there this week on projects his mum had set up. So they always had really bad mine problems. And you can see it like every day as people with their limbs, walking around the village with their limbs blown off. Having had their limbs blown off is a serious problem. So these guys had found these decommissioned mines that were basically like kettlebells. And so we were training with these wires. We assume they're decommissioned. I never actually checked. I mean, suddenly it goes off. It's one of those kind of
gym workout. Just hope.
Yeah, exactly.
In my head, they're decommissioned. I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah. Gym workout with mines.
With mines, yeah. I got a great picture of this guy. He's bloody strong. He's fat, but he was super strong. And he was doing like some kind of one of those, like, what do you call those Roman lifts where you lift yourself off the ground and then have to put it above your head, and you do this massive, great, like big, like anti-tank mine. Yeah, mental.
Should we ask David Lloyd if they can get some in?
Yeah,
exactly.
Suggestions box. Angolan mines.
Ask Harry.
So when you're going along this, what are you thinking? Like, what is your end goal? Like, are you just going you're just going everywhere? Are you just, what was your thought process? Was it more just the fact that, so you did the South African trip and then you just carried on going, really, and then you was like,
well, the genesis for the South African one was actually a girl.
Okay.
Standard.
Yeah.
There's a girl I really fancy. Actually, we'd been out for a bit, a couple of years before, and it all worked out well in the end. You'd be happy to hear. But and she was volunteering in Nairobi, and I'd just done this motorcycle trip the year before from Nepal back to London.
I can see where this is going. It's like, I've got a motorbike, and I'm going to drive it to see you.
Yeah, right. You'd think that would work, wouldn't you? Spoiler alert: she married my best friend.
I thought you said that had a happy ending.
It was a happy ending. She got to avoid me, so that was the happy ending. Not for me, but obviously I'm heartbroken. But yes, that's basically how it started. I thought, I need to follow up from last year's trip. Africa sounds interesting. I'll come down and drive down and see you. And it was literally a process of working out, okay, if I'm going to go to Nairobi, which is almost exactly halfway between Europe and South Africa, I might as well carry on to South Africa. And that was all I intended to do. And then I realised by the time you ship your bike back and fly back, it would cost me less just to drive back. And so I drove back. And that's how that happened. And what happened was lovely. Why it is a happy ending is that we came down to Nairobi and spent a month with Lila volunteering in an orphanage in the slums in Nairobi. And we got talking. I'd been, the 3 years before that, I'd been working in various programs in India up in the hills.
Is that you? I don't know if this is me. I was scrolling through some of your photos. There's a photo of you and a lady. Is that the lady that you were on about? And then I clicked on the profile and there's like photos of just people sat on tanks, anti-aircraft guns and things like that. I was sitting there thinking, this is some serious kind of trip. I'll show you. I was absolutely mind blown.
You do realise that every male now listening to this probably doesn't like you very much. Yeah. Their wife is now going, what do you mean you won't drive 2 hours to come and see me? He drove across the world. He took his bike across the world to go and see her. Yeah. You won't even drive an hour.
Right, where is this? Because
and that's basically my dating profile. It sounds great until reality hits. And you want to get something from Tesco's.
What's your Instagram for everyone?
Neil Tement.
Got it here.
Here we go.
Conogram.
Yeah, Conogram.
No, what's that?
One sec.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. No, she's awesome. No, it's not. No, she is coming to Congo with me. She's an amazing gal. Simone Bazos. She's
because the fifth picture is 3 guys sat in an anti-aircraft gun on the back of them.
Yeah. No, she's a real deal. Absolutely.
That is just, you're just sitting there, and I was just like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, come on, these guys haven't gone in trouble.
A lot of people, so basically, I'll tell you what happened with her was I was trying to do a bit of research on potential broadcast partners for Congo early on. I came across this, and you look it up, it's brilliant. This this film that she did for Vice Media called Russian Pilots in the Congo. And it's just this great fun. It's exactly what it says on the tin, it's Russian. She got in there. She spent months kind of gaining their trust. And it's all these ex-military pilots from Russia that come out to spend latter parts of their career flying planes around Congo. And they're as mental as they sound. And she managed to get their trust, let them, they don't want to talk about what they're doing. They want to keep a low profile, but they let her in. And she spent time out there, and she spent years before that in really tough places. And she had, as I got to know her better, and I wrote to her, said, "Can I have the name of your producer? P.S. If you want to come on this walk with me, you She wrote back, I'm in. Bless her. And I thought, let's meet and let's have a chat. And I seem to remember my interview question was, look, I've just been reading these horrible articles about what happens to you if you get bitten by a snake, and I'm damned if I'm going to. Basically, your whole respiration cuts, right? And you suffocate. And I thought, don't have long. No, thank you. So I said, basically, the way I look at it is, if that happens and there's nothing can be done, you're going to have to shoot me. Are you okay with that? And she goes, yeah, I'm okay with that, but you've got to do it to me as well. I was like, okay, deal. And that was like the interview question.
Right, so you're going on a trip to the Congo. You've agreed, like you just maybe this is why you're
suicide.
It's just potentially why you're single. By the way, if I get bitten, you call to shoot me. I'm out. This is too much. Okay, so why don't you just take? Is there no like vaccine or?
It's a complicated one. That one, the antivenom. It's
antivenom.
There's not a lot of it. Most of it needs to be kept in cold storage.
Okay.
A lot of it doesn't have. It's not super. The efficacy of it is not really great. So, you definitely have options, but they're not. It's not foolproof by any means.
Okay.
It's scary. It's the only thing. It is genuinely the only thing that gives me actual nightmares. Is snakes. And it probably. I've been around other places where there are snakes and you never notice them, but it is. It was one article. Is it
a common snake or not? In the Congo?
There's loads of snakes.
No, but of that caliber.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's swarming with them. Millions of them. Millions of the most, some of the most dangerous snakes in the world. I was at London Zoo a couple of years ago at the reptile enclosure, and they have 2 green mambas, which they are quite common in that region, and it's behind like inch thick bulletproof glass, right? And I crouched down, and it's probably about 2 yards away, and it just picked its head up. And the green mamba is beautiful, like it's really pretty. It's very feline looking. It looks like a kind of cat. It's very beautiful, really bright green. And it just locked eyes with me, and just really quickly just came towards me on the rock, and then reared up like this. Not aggressively per se, but just came up and I swear, I literally almost pissed myself. In a literal sense, I was so petrified by this thing. And I completely forgot they didn't have the glass. There was a glass between us. It was just realizing that thing there, a foot away. If it bit me now, I'd be in it. It would kill me, and I'd be dead in 30 minutes. It's people live there. People live in that environment day in, day out. Without that, so it's one of those things. Yes, it's definitely a risk. It's one thing. I think it's just the nature of. Until I read this article when I was doing my research, where a scientist died from a snake bite. He hadn't prepared his. He was a snake. He was a herpetologist. He was a snake scientist, right? But he was woefully unprepared, and it was this horrible account of how it took him 17 hours to die, of which 13 of them were him and his team giving him artificial respiration, but he was still alive and conscious. And it was just like, oh no, thank you.
It's worse than drowning, though.
It is. That's it. Like that's the reality. He knew, and you're feeling it. You're feeling the paralysis come through your body. So there's lots of stuff. We'll have the advantage, for example, obviously of having boots, and that's where most people who get bitten in sub-Saharan Africa, they're getting bitten on their ankles and on their lower legs. Yeah. It's actually it's a growing area of realization that actually snake bite mortality and injury is a really because people that aren't being recorded, people aren't, either they're dying too quickly to get to hospital, people aren't recording it, and so it's not getting any notice. It's actually it's a massive public health problem. So that the fact that we'll always be wearing boots and heavy, it's going to
you just need to get some sort of Kevlar leggings.
Absolutely, mate. Trust me, they literally are threaded with Kevlar.
A suit of Roman armor is for sale.
Use one
snake.
Could you imagine that trip? Mate, you haven't got just 10 miles now, you've got 3,000 miles.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm so, talking about the Congo, right? Yeah. I just put into Google, the Congo. The first question that comes up, is Congo safe to visit? Reconsider travel to Democratic Republic of the Congo due to crime and civil unrest. Do not travel to, in bold letters, North, is it Kivu and Ituri, provinces due to crime, Ebola and kidnapping.
Yeah.
And it's a nice place.
It's not a kid.
It's
if you're old, mate.
Isn't that why you're going? Is it like the adrenaline rush of that, or is it just the fact that you go, actually, I don't believe that, and I think there's a lot more behind the scenes. We've had people there before. They've met some lovely people, and it's a different experience to what's been portrayed.
Well, it starts off with having an opportunity to do something that no one has done before, which honestly I never thought I would do, because I'm not. I have no kind of. I don't believe I'm particularly technically talented at anything that would allow me to go and do a first climb or something like that.
Did you? Well, before we go on to that, did you actually climb Mount Everest?
No, 2 years. So I started the Kenyan Everest expedition. So the idea was to support a Kenyan climber to be the first Kenyan to climb Everest. Okay. So I started it, funded it, selected a Kenyan climber. And it was my first attempt to use adventure as like a narrative tool to get people excited about something. And the idea was to show people outside Kenya through this one guy, Steve, what an amazing, extrapolating from him to characteristics that I see every day in Kenya. We went there. We went 2 years, 2014, 2015. Unfortunately, 2 years that were, two disasters, one after the other. First was 16 Sherpas were killed in the icefall on the south side of Everest, which quite reasonably, not quite, quite properly meant that the season was cancelled. And then in 2015, even greater tragedy, which was a massive earthquake, leveled huge parts of Nepal, and again closed the Everest. And it's only 2 times the season's ever been cancelled, and it was 2 years that we went. So it's unfinished business there for sure. And it's a special place. It's a really it's a really interesting topic, like kind of the number of armchair mountaineers that come out from like March to May, which is the climbing season on Everest, people commenting on it. And it's as ever, it's a nuanced subject. Everyone's seen that picture of the queue across that final ridge to the summit, which is, is reality and reality of overcrowding. But, people that go, anyone who thinks it's not still a serious climb needs to just trek into Everest Base Camp, work out how rough you feel at 5,500 meters, and then imagine climbing 3.5 more vertical kilometers.
So I don't think I've ever met anyone that says that Mount Everest isn't a serious climb.
It's the commentary. If you next year when it's kind of, let's say, Everest season from March to May, mid-May, kind of keep an eye out on the articles and watch the comments and stuff about it's just a trek. And you look at that. If you look at that ridge photo, and you could easily see that ridge photo doesn't look fundamentally different than a wintry day in Scotland, like the actual rocks and stuff. So if you've never been to altitude, it's easy to think.
Well, it's thinner.
It looks just like but what you can't. It's impossible to describe in a sense. Well, you need just to go to any altitude and feel how rough you feel, and then you imagine being at that altitude where you are literally dying. At that, above 8,000 odd meters, like your body cannot survive up there.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to describe, like how close to death everyone in that line is. So it looks as if it's a very, very, very weird thing to describe. Is
it 8,000 meters? Is that roughly what it is?
It's 8,838 meters is the summit, but 8,000 meters I think is kind of where the limit beyond which you are actively dying.
So Ben Nevis was what, 1,400
feet?
I don't even know, man. I don't think we went there.
It was 4,000.
So what you're saying is Everest is 7 times that, or 8 times that it was. Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. It's a weird one, and going back to talking about your climb up Ben Nevis, and it's bloody rough, but it's a weird.
You call it a climb now?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's a fucking play park. It's a fucking go do that
stairs
8 times. I'll tell you what is interesting. I know a guy that would love to probably do Mount Everest with you. Unfortunately, I didn't get his name. We got to the top of the summit. This guy must have been mid-40s, wearing shorts and a water pack. Yeah, we took us. We left at 9. I hit the summit. You were slower because you're fair enough. You're wearing 25 kilo of metal. So it was
a chance you got to beat me.
Yeah, he said he was going to carry me up. Never happened. And I got up there probably about, I would say, 1:30. You must
because I did it in 4:10.
Oh, okay.
So you were before me because you were about, well,
I'd say an hour. So maybe 3:10. No, yeah, maybe okay, 12:30 then, yeah. Let's just go. It doesn't matter. 12:30. This fella comes up, not out of breath, anything, right? And he's wearing shorts and tee, and I thought, what's going on? And he's going, yes, like I've got to the top. And I said, please tell me that you haven't just ran up here. He's, yeah. I said, what time did you do it in? 2 hours. He wasn't even out of breath. I said, why? Fun.
Yeah.
What? Right. He's like, right, I've got to run back down now. 2 hours. I was sitting there thinking at one point, it sounds stupid. I wasn't really. It was borderline hands and knees on the last kind of 50 minutes. It just ends up going like that, and you see it. It's kind of like it's almost like gravel stone. So it's like being on a pebbly beach where it's just like that, and you just keep falling back. And I was like, how's that guy?
Heartbreaker.
I see the thing. I tried to think about running up that without falling over or even doing it. It was just crazy. And I just thought, this guy's another level. There's just some people out there. I was talking about it on a previous podcast with a guy called George Sullivan, and there's I can't remember what his name is now. This guy, he's went and done 50 Ironmans in 50 days. In 50 days, broke the world record. And it's just
Netflix, isn't it?
He's called like the Iron Cowboy or something like that. That's it. Yeah. The Iron Cowboy. Then you got the guy that's swam around the whole of the UK. Lost parts of his tongue.
Yeah, his tongue started falling out. His feet, like
You think, and he had that one little cut on the bottom of his toe, and just went to the bone because it was like it was constantly in the water. And then you got David Goggins. It's just like, I'm going for a run. You're kind of falling into that category. Yeah, you're getting to that stage now. Like, I mean, let's go. So you're talking about the snake bites and everything else going into the Congo River. Were those the biggest things on the risk of the trip?
I think no, probably not. I think if you imagine risk as a pyramid, like the broadest day-to-day risk is just going to be, I think just exhaustion, making sure real risk of illness from water, from lack of nutrition, poor nutrition.
Are you doing the whole water? Like, I mean,
it's not. I think obviously, given the fact that we're following a river, it's not going to be an issue as if we're kind of trying to traverse a desert. So
there's a device. You're probably fully aware of it. I've seen it. They're awesome. They're these like almost like tea mugs now. They're battery powered. I'm sure it would last. No. It pours the water through this thing, and then there's like a blue light, and it kills all of the bacteria that it falls through, and then it's just purified.
We used to get issued something called lifesaver bottles, and you put it in, and you just pump them like that. They were big, like 3 litre, bulkiest thing ever. No one carried them because they were just too big. But you still get given them, and it was the same. You just scoop any water into it, pump it, and that would apparently give you clean water.
Yeah. The problem is, and then they're actually all of those were options. Anything which is battery, electric, it's got to be lower tech than that because you just can't rely on it. Yeah. That's the pump is such hard work. If in the serious, it's hard work, particularly when you're probably going to be drinking 8 to 9 litres, probably 6 to 8 litres of water a day. And there's a brilliant device that came out where actually it's a filter that uses the power of gravity to push it through, and it's a bit slower. So you got, I can't remember how big the reservoir is, like 5 litres or something. And it doesn't take that long, but it takes half an hour. Okay. But you can do it, it's passive. So you can, you have probably 3 or 4 of them, and you get into camp, and the first thing you do is going to get that in, let it start filtering while you're setting up other stuff. So you're not using valuable energy doing something that's really not necessary. And B, it's a lot. It gets a lot of it done really quickly while you have other tasks going on. So from in terms of like my approach it's you don't want to become too gear focused, but also at the same time you want to be super gear focused, which is a weird dichotomy. That you want to be gear focused mentally, so that if you lost everything, you couldn't crack on, because it's a possibility. You get stuff could be stolen. You could lose everything in a flood. You could potentially lose everything. You couldn't be so mentally reliant on it that you wouldn't be able to reprovision locally. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity to be as well prepared as you can, like for me, I've got like a 280 item gear list, something like that. And every single item you're thinking through, there's such a plethora of information on the internet. There is no excuse not to be questioning everything that you're taking and making sure that it's the best fit for purpose, whether that's weight, whether that's efficacy, whether it's just the right thing to be using. And it's actually one of the Congo thing for me is been is absolutely the pivotal experience in my life, and I haven't even started yet.
Yeah. I've seen you've been talking about it since like 2016 about doing it.
So what happened was Everest. We did the first attempt on Everest, got back from that. we had great traction as a storytelling device in Kenya. Like Steve, quite right, he's an amazing guy, was lauded all over Kenya. Had he summited, he would be like written into the country's history. But it certainly worked in terms of getting people talking. We got no traction outside of Kenya because obviously you're in such. Everest is not a news story unless you're doing some crazy, ridiculous thing. It's not going to get any coverage.
Roman,
just as Roman, literally. I mean, and at that point, you think, in all seriousness, if you're doing something that is just purely novelty for novelty's sake, there's, this is fun, but I mean, it's just no point. So I got back from that, and although we committed to another, had funding for another year, 2015, didn't put any more like serious thought into it, just kind of have it on the back burner. And this is when I realized, and it just happened at that time that realized that no one had done this Congo River trip. I thought that is a narrative that I could build something around. No one's done it before. It's something that's strange to talk about world first that I never thought I was going to do. But this is something where it just intertwines a set of challenges that I think would actually just massively appeals to my skill set. Partly just the willingness to sort of set something off. A year is nothing. Physical challenge, obviously, mental challenge, but it's also there's a subtlety to it. Like there's a political piece there, like navigating these political ups and downs. They have to be, particularly in the storytelling piece, allied with that. Like there's a lot of. It's not just a pure like bashing through. It's a real
documenting this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Simone, who we talked about before, she's the filmmaker.
How the hell? So how many days is this?
A year.
Yeah. So how you've got to recharge camera batteries, memory cards.
Number 2 priority every day after water and food is going to be keeping charged.
And how are you going to do it?
How are you going to do
solo?
it?
So you solo everything.
Yeah. And it just becomes like literally a daily priority.
Obviously, the thing you're going to sit there with like a wind-up battery or something, trying to.
Yeah, I probably have that as a backup. But honestly, it's one of the great advantages of
savageness. This.
So this is let me go. So basically, this thing started in 2015. I came back from this first Everest expedition in absolute pieces. I was just so exhausted. Not just I'd underestimated how much I should never have tried to climb and manage the expedition as well. I was so shattered when we came back. We had a beautiful setup, like we had the most amazing base camp setup, but the psychological as well as physical stress of trying to manage it, as well as trying to get my head around trying to do this. It was my first time trying to do that. A massive step up, and I came back from it ill, exhausted, just feeling kind of broken. So then I started this, and I broke up with my long-term girlfriend because I didn't want to go out with her anymore. But just basically, I was living on the floor of a friend's apartment, pretty much penniless, ill. In New York, and it was just like crack on and started preparing this Congo expedition, but from a really low place. But I just had a gut feeling it was the right thing to do. And psychologically thinking, this is my narrative arc. I got rejected from the army. I've gone on with it. I've gone and done these expeditions. I've done them hard yards. I've done them self-funded. I've just built experience. Done this school in Kenya, just given me an insight into Africa and storytelling, done Everest. Now it's time to get it right, like the final iteration of this model, do it right. And Congo is the one for it. Like it's destiny. This is my fate. And you think, okay, I'm going to bring everything I've ever learned together into one glorious sort of finale. And you did it right. So it had first of all, it was, the project, if you look at it from, look at almost everything from almost from a marketing point of view, like, can you sell this? Because it has to be, you've got to sell this to people, sponsors or broadcasters.
Have you got sponsors for it?
Well, I'll come on to this. And this is all part of what's made this such a kind of insane personal experience.
I've got so many questions.
So you got this thing, right? I'm coming to you, I'm saying this is a world-class, this is a world first expedition to walk down the Congo River. I'm being represented by this great agency that's renowned for activating around adventurous properties. I've got Robin Wright, the actress. She's going to be she's our spokeswoman. She's going to do all the voiceover for our film and stuff. I've got this great team: Simone, Boston.
When you say film, is this getting published anywhere?
Well, it's all part of the story, right? Okay. So we pulled everything together into this great pitch, and worked hard on developing. I had working with UN, and the whole thing being a vehicle to tell these stories about. We decided we're going to focus on telling stories about women and girls. We've got UN Women to come on as our kind of cause partner, and telling stories that are critical, absolutely critical, and. So you got this package. You think, right, let's get out there. I'm going to put it. I know that I have to pitch 100 potentials to get a sponsor, 2 sponsors. I've done it before. I've raised money for Everest, which you shouldn't be able to do. Let's go and make this happen. And we could not get the bloody thing over the line. Partly that was because one of my goals in setting this up was I had to put a budget line in there for my own pay. Like I had to kind of like, got through it for however many years, just get muddling through. I thought, Toby, like I was coming 40 years old, like you need to work out if you can do this professionally, you should have a budget line in there. And it was about doing with the full agency backup, and want to do everything professionally. So you just pay everyone instead of having to beg someone to do your social. You got someone to do your social, you got someone to do your PR, you got someone to do your events, and we're just going to do it properly. But it meant for a much bigger budget. Broadcast was definitely one of the key goals. Was to get broadcast in there, and so the sponsorship side, it was incredibly hard to get on to commit to the amount of money we're looking for that length. Like a year long is good from an activation point of view in one sense, but equally, like big brands are going to struggle to see how you keep a story going for a year. Congo then, while it's got great name recognition, on the flip side, obviously, as soon as you Google it, people are thinking, particularly if you're looking to commit £500,000, which is what we were asking for at that time, there's massive reputational risk there for that amount of money. Yeah. If it works out well, brilliant. But if these boys all get eaten by a crocodile, it could look bad for us.
It's a risk, isn't it?
From the broadcast point of view, so we got so Robin Wright, particularly from House of Cards. She's been a great Congo advocate for a long time, and I reached out to her rep and said, "Look, this is what we're doing. We'd love to work together." And so she came on, basically said, would be executive producer for anything we broadcast. We should do voiceover. Should come out to Congo hopefully and join us in the very last piece. And we had conversations with big broadcasters. I mean, the kind of stuff where literally if they'd said yes, we would be all guns blazing, and they were long conversations, really in depth. And it went down with three broadcasters. It went down to the point where it was us and another project they were going to decide upon. And 3 times in a row, it went against us. And it was, eviscerating. Because again, I see in my mind, I can see this is destiny, right? You just this is all you have to do is do everything you've done well, just at one level higher. You're going to get that decision, yes. You're going to go, and it's going to be that's it. That's that pivotal moment. It's a career like any other. It's the next career step. Yeah. It's like it's going up to be CEO. It's whatever it might be. It's no different in a way. It's just self-defined. And that was eviscerating. You think, is it not my fate? Is this not my destiny? Yeah. It really came down to that. And we basically got it. So we pitched everyone. There was no one left to pitch, and all the broadcasters, they've got you're done for their you're done for their editorial calendar for the year. So I kind of went away. I had some stuff, other pressing stuff. I had to sort out family stuff. And in that time away, I just came to terms with the fact that I had to kind of rethink how I was going to do it. What was the most important thing? Get it done. Second most important thing, or equally most important thing, was do it with a mission. Keep the mission. Getting paid. Screw it, I'll get paid later. Who cares? Big support team around me. Screw it, I'll do what I've always done. Go out there and find someone committed who will do social media pro bono. Screw it. No big budget. We'll just sleep rough every night for a year. Done it before. So it was a mental shift from that to that, from model I'd set it up with, and really well done, to that. And then I came back 6 months ago. I thought, right, it's not an expensive expedition. The actual core cost of the expedition is very limited. It was actually the peripheral stuff, which I thought was critical, which actually adds the financial burden. So, right, this is what we're going to do. You're going to go back to what's gotten you through 15 years, and you're just going to do it again one last time for the one that's going to really make a difference. And you go back to what we said right at the very beginning of our chat about, put us so focused in a way about how this was going to be part of a career path. You forget that you're going to have these thousands of experiences along the way. Yeah. That are going to make it define what it is. And it's not to say one shouldn't be practical about it, because I should be thinking of, my age, I need to be thinking a little bit about how am I going to set myself up. But I thought, just remember that whatever happens, get this thing done, because it will be life-changing. So that's basically what happened. It's taken me this long just to kind of, I no longer work with my agency just because I couldn't. I said, guys, I want to do it for 75 grand. I know it makes no business sense for you. And it was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And strangely, what happened was then the other twist in the tail was that, so I've been working, doing short lettings, and we've done a bit of it here and there, and suddenly realised I had good business potential, and so I started this.
With the short lettings, though, are they properties that you own?
No.
Okay.
Rent, lease, and sublet.
Oh, okay, right. And do you agree that with them, or not?
Yes. Okay. Yes, for the most part.
That's one of those questions that you have to go, yes.
Yeah, but very much it is part of an evolution and part of a journey, and why meeting Richard was such my partner Richard was such a good timing is because having spent sort of as I've been out repitching Congo, building this business, building track record, building understanding, it's just the right time to go out there and pitch significantly for significantly bigger properties where they're specifically looking for short letting people. And it's really interesting how my other great love in life actually always has been design and creativity, and I've done loads of house renovations, and it was a chance to actually bring that plus just kind of attention to detail and rigorousness that I apply in expeditions into a completely different field.
Yeah.
But like we talked about how so often the characteristics that lead to success in this field are actually very similar to the ones that lead to success in this field and this field and this field.
Correct.
They're just sort of the Nobel Prize for Medicine was yesterday, and it was so interesting hearing the stories from the winners and listening to them and thinking like behind the scenes, like they're obviously genius at what they do, but so much of what they've done, it comes down to just bloody hard work, and yourself here and, what I'm trying to do. And it was very interesting how so much, we talk about gear lists, how I'm just so obsessive about gear lists, which interestingly was the reason I first got obsessed about gear lists was I saw the gear list of Everest summiteer who was also a US astronaut. And of course, if you're an astronaut, every microgram is weighed, right? Because you are not pushing one thing up into orbit. You don't have to. And he had done exactly that with his gear list. Everything was measured to the gram. And it's incredibly obvious when you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
But for me, it was such a revelation. And that's what I've done ever since. It was always about this absolutely to an nth degree of detail that most people would think is obsessive and is obsessive. But then you suddenly realize that is the blessing. If you can embrace that obsessiveness and the discomfort that comes with being obsessive.
Yes.
That is all the difference between success and failure. Like, it's not rocket science. Like, nothing which I'm proposing is rocket science. It's just I'm going to do it better than anyone else. Like, going to walk the Congo is literally a year of walking, right? Yeah. It's not rocket science, but it is a lot of meticulousness and rigorousness it's the day-to-day rigorousness, I think.
Yes. Or feeling uncomfortable constantly. And I literally did a TED talk. I did a TED talk a few years ago about the feeling of uncomfortable. Okay. And just basically about how when you're in that state of being uncomfortable, that is where progression lies. Yeah, absolutely. And I preach it all the time. It's nice to hear it from someone else saying about it. And it's just, people don't want to go into that uncomfortable. No. But, and I talk about it a lot, and there's that whole lobster analogy. A lobster shell is hard, and it grows inside out to the point where it's so uncomfortable, it has to go under a rock and shed that hard shell, be vulnerable to grow a new one. And that just shows you that uncomfortable in that sense, in that simple analogy, and in life, it hands down equates to growth. Absolutely. If that's what you're aiming for. But people just shy away from that, don't they? It's just like, I was talking about it. When people feel uncomfortable, they go to their doctors, or they go with, it must be depression, it must be mental health, it must be this, it must be that. And yes, it can be in some cases, but in a lot of the cases, it could just be the fact that you're putting yourself to that next level of where your potential growth lies. Yeah,
I had a good mate of mine who recently lost his job in ridiculous circumstances, and put him, somebody who's had an absolute stellar career path, and put him for about 8 days into a mega uncomfortable position until he realised that it was actually a massive blessing in disguise, and he was going to start his own company and thrive in a way that he'd never done before. But it came from in that case, it was where the bridges had been burnt for him. But I said, mate, listen, what you're feeling now is such a valuable thing. Embrace it, use it. For me, it's even like coming here today. There were certain things I wanted to get done for today that wouldn't have got done to the end of the week, the end of the month. And it's like, mate, just, you've got to get them done by the time you get on that podcast this morning. And I, I had a million things to do, but it gave me an extra degree of focus to get them done by today. And it was just like, I think it's, you see it with people who retire.
Sorry.
Yes. Cheers, mate. I'll add that to the thing to talk about with my doctor. He just keeps sending me texts to go and see him again. I think it's when people retire. So you've seen again, when people retire, how swiftly you see them go down hills, because I think part of the human condition is that you have to have a degree of pressure. And this is why I want to go and do this trip. Is like, there's times, particularly in the last couple of years, when it seems so distant. I think, what am I doing? Am I capable of doing that? But I know that what's great is I'm just about capable of doing it. Like, and I've always think it's my blessing is I've never been so blessed with talent in any particular way that I've been, but just been good enough that it's within reach.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably disagree. Maybe you're just hard on yourself.
I am hard, yeah, no, for sure. But also, I think it all comes down to aspiration as well. Like, if I wanted to cruise it, I'd be I'd be well sorted for that. If I want to excel, then I think I'm just enough. So I feel, and it's not. I think it's I think one good thing about this whole particularly adventure, I don't think it has to necessarily be in a physical way, but it is a great forum for self-reflection. Like, you do get to know yourself pretty well, and I do think that I don't have an awful lot of. I don't think I have much illusion about myself, for better or worse. And I think that's one of the things I really want to commit to talking about over the course of this expedition, and then in retrospect, is the messy, painful, doubting path that it has taken success. Because I think what's a problem, why it's so important that you talk about this, why I talk about this, why anyone who has succeeded talks about it in open and honest ways. It's very easy for someone to sit and look at you as a on the pinnacle, sitting there up on you, having done an amazing job or whatever it might be, and think, God, he must just be so brilliant and absolutely crushed it. Whereas I've never met anyone who's succeeded who hasn't had this unbelievably tortuous journey. And of course, if you haven't had a tortuous journey, you've missed out on something, because it's there that you talk about. That's where the learning is. But so I think, I really want to talk about that, because I don't think, I do reflect on this. Why me? Like, when I look back at school, all those people I went to school with, like, a lot of them were. I only got into the first 15 rugby in the very last year at school, and it was funny because I suddenly thought, I've got to be fit. And this one guy, good mate of mine, had been in the first 15 for 12 years, and I knocked him out in the last year. But there were so many people there who were stronger and fitter than me. There are so many people who are better qualified to go and do this Congo expedition than me. You think about I've never done any kind of serious jungle training. Like, every bloke in the army who's gone and done jungle training and paper better qualified than me. Yeah. What is it that's taken me there? So I don't think it's any particular characteristics beyond, perhaps, like I said, this instinct, this compulsion to do it.
Yeah, but you did weird training, didn't you? Like, I
never got to do jungle. That's when I got to miss. So I did mountain, I did Arctic, I'd done like all the conventional warfare. Never got to do jungle. But all you have to do is speak to anyone that's done it, and they say it is horrible. The worst place in the world to operate. SF selection, they say that is where more people fail. Like, the rule of thumb is like, if you pass the jungle, you've got a strong chance, because after that everything's just sort of like, it is the most horrible and disgusting environment to work in. It's humid, everything wants to kill you, and it's just not a good place to be.
No, absolutely. It's not to be underestimated.
Not trying to sell it to you or anything.
But my again, I think this is it's going to be why it's such a massive mental game. I mean, I love winter. I love cold weather. I much prefer that climate. The summer in the city, in London, is not a fun time, I don't think.
No.
But for me, it's about, mentally, I'm going to go into this, and I've spent summers in Delhi. But the difference is you're going into it knowing you're going to sweat. Yeah. And I think mentally, I'm going to start that thing and go, look, mate, trust me, you're not going to be comfortable for a year. Just mentally get your head around it. Yeah. And I think that's it's not going to be, it's not going to be it's not going to make it suddenly easy, but you're kind of framing it in a different way. So yeah, and it's partly just how, and I really think this last 4 years it's brought, it's just been, it'll be 4 years from concept to now, and last year or so building this business, believing that it could mean that I could then so the idea was to build the business. Worst case, I could pay for it. Best case, I can at least underwrite it, so potential sponsors can have it's funded, so we've definitely got a go date. It was one of the problems when we had this massive budget. We couldn't give a definitive go date because, until we got the title sponsor on board, we couldn't say go. And so, everyone wants to plan in their activation calendars. And it was catch-22, and there was nothing really we could do about it. This way, I could say, look, worst case scenario, I'll pay for the damn thing myself. I'm leaving 1st June 2020. Are you on board? And it's much smaller amounts I'm asking for, so it's a much simpler ask. But it was so. So I started this business with the intention of being able to underwrite the expedition. But day in day out for a year, I'm sort of doing bloody changeovers and driving laundry around and like cleaning toilets, like doing everything, like doing all right back at bottom level stuff. Now my business was still just. And it was, incredibly difficult. But I do remember thinking, even with some degree of objectivity, like, mate, this is where you're putting those extra strands of steel into your spine, because you get onto that trail, like they're going to have to bring you off dead before you stop. Like, that is my goal. I literally not stop unless I'm dead. You know, I mean, you try, and it's hard, impossible to say, but like I start that thing. I don't care if I break my leg. I'm going to go and spend 2 months in the hospital, recover, come back on the trail, and keep going. Whether I do in reality, you know, I have a horrible fracture, maybe I'm like, oh fuck this, I'm out of here. Yeah, but in my mind, like, you know, that's and in terms of how at least I'm going to, my intention starting out, like I've not gone through the last 4 years where it's been, you know, such anxiety. Like my whole, you know, it feels like my life is on this, you know, on this kind of, you know, on this pivot here. You know, I'm talking about making a hand symbol here for listeners at home.
They can see you, don't worry.
Okay. So, you know, but basically it feels like, you know, your entire life, you know, again, this is at this age, like 40 years old, whatever you do now is going to set you up for the second half of your life. You cannot make any mistakes now. And yet this thing that's been so important has been just so tantalizingly out of reach. And to say, just thinking like, but you just get to that start line and know that and remind yourself of what you've taken to get to that point. And it might well be that that's one of the core blessings, is that it gave you a resolve that, yeah, okay, you wanted to do it before, you were going to hit it with determination, but you had no idea it was going to be so bloody hard to get there, and nothing is going to stop you. Oh, fuck, you know, just you go through anything. You know, it's that brilliant quote about Hannibal, or from Hannibal, you know, back in when he did his elephant stuff. I'll either find a way or I'll make one.
Yeah.
No, my favourite one is like, you work it out. I don't care. Let's work it out.
That mentality there, from an exploring point of view, an adventurous point of view, is the same in business.
Yeah.
You find a way.
Yeah.
You know, okay, right, I've fallen, there's a hurdle. Yeah. I'll find a way to overcome that. Next one. I call it being a fireman. I'm just putting out a little fire onto the next one. There's another fire. I'll put that out and I'll just keep on going. Yeah. And that's the same sort of mentality. Absolutely. The thing is, you're saying that you're on a pivotal point of saying that this is either going to happen, not going to happen. But when you get back from going, you still got to get over Mount Everest.
Yes, I mean, this is, you know, I probably do speak about it in a little bit too absolute terms. Like, so I know that, you know, and it's part of it is like, you know what, I'll deal with that when I get there. If I have Congo under my belt, I reckon whatever I've got to deal with has got to be, you know,
it's got to be easier.
It's going to make it easier, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be opportunities, you know that. But it is a good point, obviously. And then you think about that as a human, what is going to be your, like, do you ever get contented with? Are you ever happy with a period of contentment? Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. What next?
Yes,
yeah, that's what.
You know, and I think
that's what we say to. That's what we've been saying about these other guys as well. They go and do crazy things. What happens when you've done that? What next? Are you going to sit there and go, this isn't as mad as it was before? What next? Do you think you'll go for that?
I think partly. I think honestly, I'll be happy to play that as I see it. Like, if I come back and genuinely and I've got really good friends who, you know, many ex-army guys who have gone off and done, you know, fought in, you know, multiple tours out in Afghanistan, Iraq, you know, and who have just got real kind of adventurous spirit anyway, but who, when the time was right, said, now I'm going to commit to raising my family.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And there was no, okay, there's a bit of, there's part of them that would love to come and do this or that, but there's no real gut level fight with it. This is what they want to do at that time. Yeah. So I think there's partly just trusting instinct, what it says at that time. I think my hope would be at that point it'd be easier to kind of get a balance. But I do want a family. I do want to get settled down in the sense of like having that kind of that home base. I can't imagine that suddenly, I'm not going to want to do it. Yeah, exactly.
You don't want you know the terrace house. You know, you still want to have that, but still have to go away and do stuff.
But it's almost like you look at that as challenging of itself, right? You think, okay, I want to have a family. I want to be married. I want to have a family. I want to keep adventuring. Okay, hold on. You better make sure that the person you're with is, at least broadly speaking, in line. Like you're
what
kind
you
of,
want to do.
Yeah, life-wise, you're kind of on the same page. And then you go and build a house in Kenya and live out there for a few years, or you just make it so that you can mobile school, or you can't use it almost as the prompt to be creative in how you create your life. Which almost in a way with the business is what appeals to me about this particular the business model.
Both worlds
is that. And what I don't want is to create a model where I'm being paid for my particular skills. I'm paid, basically my money on this business model is I'm paid for spotting good properties, make sure I do a brilliant creative job on them, if I say so myself, but doing a good creative job on them, setting up a management structure so they can be maintained at exceptional quality. But I can walk away at any point and it manages it without me.
Correct.
Everyone's like, oh, Toby, you should set yourself up as an interior designer. It's like, I think I'm quite good at it. I probably could. But I know at that point, someone's paying me personally to do a job, right? And that doesn't work in terms of how I envision my life.
You're paying for your time, your hours, rather than paying for, a broader picture or something where you don't need to be involved directly.
Exactly. So my thing, I think my thing, I think it's if people are asking for my advice on anything, it's quite often is about take the time to, it's so hard when life is moving at such a pace. If you can take the time to take a step back and just look, like try and get a vision for your own life. And people don't talk about it enough, I don't think, about trying to envision what kind of life you actually want to lead, and then reverse engineer to the point where you are, and how do you create that? And a genuine honesty with what it is you want, not influenced by what your friends are doing, not influenced what society's saying. And I'd love, there's part of me that would love to, there's part of me that would love to live out in the countryside and stuff. I miss that kind of rural life, but I equally know.
It's like me. I absolutely love Scotland. I just think the Highlands, there's nothing like it. I'm 4.5 hours away from the city if I ever have to be.
Yep.
And there's a big part of me that sits there and thinks, why not?
Yeah.
And I've been in the city, I've been trading, I've been doing this now for 10 years. And I have not done as much exploring or much traveling I've done. I've done some crazy things, I swam the Solent for charity. That was quite nuts. I've done this whole Ben Nevis thing. I've done the half marathon. I should probably go and do the full marathon. I'm going to do things like that, but absolutely nothing in comparison to like what you're saying. It's like touch a speck of a dust.
I'm not sure anyone's done much.
But
you're saying that.
Go back to what you're saying. I think in terms of, and I don't know if there was a but there when you obviously you're thinking I'd love to go and live in Scotland, but there's part of me that thinks I would love to go and live in Scotland or Wales or France or whatever, but I feel the need to be in a place where I'm going to be forced to be better and engage with people who are doing good things. And longer term, I don't think I can just disengage from the world. Where there's part of me that wouldn't necessarily walk, there's potential. Strangely, if someone who's actually very private, hates kind of really doesn't really like being in public. I had thought about whether there'd be a role for me in public, in politics, at some point.
I've also looked into politics and I'm very pro Green Party I wouldn't say actually I'm pro any party. I'm pro looking after the planet rather than anything else. I think politics has lost its way. However, looking into politics and talking to some of the people that are quite high in politics, and I do have high contacts both in the Conservative Party, both in the Green Party, and you know what? I almost feel like it's a wasted fight. And I feel like I could make much more difference by being a very successful businessman and then going to do my own thing. And that's hence why on Overwatch, I started my own charity and putting my own efforts into making a difference, looking after endangered species of animals and trying to eradicate single-use plastic as much as I can and starting to make a small difference. Yep. And I think like you can spend all the time in the world in politics and debating. And it's just like when I used to work at a private bank called Sahor & Co. Private Bank. And that business model, I left there. I loved the bank. It was like working in Hogwarts out of Harry Potter. It was an old school bank. We spent most of our time debating what we was going to do in a meeting rather than actually doing it. Mm-hmm. And when I left that, I said, no, any decision that we have or any staff has that we want to take an idea forward, we'll sit down within 1 week, we'll discuss it. And if it's a good for the business, we take it forward. Because the world moves so quick now. You can't have these debates that last 6-12 months because by the time that happens, it's old news. Like Brexit, it's old news now. Yeah. And what was discussed back then is now outdated.
Yeah. There's so many things now that are relevant on a timeline. I was reading an article.
Technology.
I was reading an article the other day, and they were talking about it's all to do with like business management, advertising, and they were saying that by the time you finish your first year of business marketing and stuff like that, it's now out of date by the time your 5-year degree is finished. So your first year is redundant. Yeah. And you're like going,
what's the point of degree?
What's the point?
Yeah. No, that's what I got told when I did my degree in marketing and advertisement. They were saying by the time that you finish your third year, what you've learned in your first will be outdated. And it's just like that kind of context. Now, I'd rather just take action rather than be that guy debating. I've got to ask a question. Did you raise the amount that you needed to start your trip?
No, not yet. No.
You're not yet?
We're getting back out there. Yeah.
Okay. When do you plan on starting?
1st of June, 2020.
I've got so many questions about your trip, just from a military perspective.
I've just got
how I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Have you got any sponsors on board yet?
Yeah, I've got a number of partners. Yeah.
Have you not reached out to like Bremont or anything like that?
It's more about now going back with these much lower tier asks.
Okay.
The difference was we went out to these big brands. Yeah, Bremont, really nice. Love the English brothers.
Bremont, because Bremont, they was doing the one with the Mount Everest guy that was climbing. What's his name?
Got Through Dark guy.
That's what
ex-SBS guy.
Through Dark.
Oh, you got exactly Through Dark. Yeah, that's all they. Yeah.
Through Dark, I won't pay him for that because I showed it to him.
Yeah, and that's obviously from those guys. And they're sponsored with Bremont and stuff like that.
Well, Bremont did my 75th anniversary watch, so I got the limited edition.
You're not wearing it?
No, I'm not wearing it today. I completely didn't realise. But they do the military branch, so the Comparative Special Edition, so they do so much.
It was. I mean, as I'm sure you know, like when you're looking at kind of major six-figure budgets, which we were back then, there aren't a lot of companies that really have that kind of marketing spend. So I think I raised $240,000 for the 2 Kenyan Everest expeditions. All of them are from Kenyan-based companies. Not one of them did I meet in person.
Really?
Before.
What?
Not one.
I would never have thought that. So we just was like, right, we're going to
every single company in Kenya.
And they trust you?
Yeah, for their sins. I mean, it was. No,
I'm not saying that you're not trustworthy. I'm just saying, you imagine someone sending me an email saying, by the way, can you send me 240,000?
Yeah. I mean, it was. 100, it was 120K each one, and we got. Apart from the last one, which was a well-known beer brand in Kenya, which is owned by a well-known international beer alcohol firm, which might work with it sometime in the future. So I'll keep stum. But they were a bloody nightmare to work with, and we literally, Steve and I, were in a taxi outside our Nairobi hotel, waiting late to go to the airport to get a flight to Kathmandu. I was knackered already because I was running around like a blue-ass fly for 2 weeks, waiting for them to bring the signed contract and a 15-foot, plasticized canvas banner of the brand.
Just what you want to
literally rocked up on the back. It rocked up a motorcycle courier through Nairobi traffic, like rush hour traffic. He came up, scribbled my signature on that one. He gave me their signed copy. And they were literally threatening to pull out like 2 days before. This was 15K. It wasn't make or break, but it was certainly would have meant I'd had to go into my own pocket for it. And it was. I mean, it was ridiculous, but it was what I think it was. What it didn't. Although it was quite a lot in total, it was done over. It was a lot of smaller chunks. And so I literally. I mean, I've just talking to Richard. Like I've just taken my time, wanted to get the business set up and running, and I'm just going back to start pitching. I'll pitch it all out before the end of the year because we're looking for 2020 budget. So it's 75K in total. Like that's all it is. It was 750 when you're looking at.
Have you got any raise or backers on board yet?
They've got loads of in-kind support. A brilliant, most invaluable thing that I have is a satellite partner, Thuraya. So we have unlimited satellite communication. So key part, like I told you, is telling these stories. Good. I mean, that's 70,000 pounds worth of satellite comms right off the bat. And again, there was a lot of stuff we weren't taking in-kind donations. Like we were not going to take gear supply. We were not going to take anything like that because
it makes a difference.
We basically set it was and it was partly me as well. And it go back to we just like everyone is going to pay. If you want to be part of this, we've set up at this scale, we've committed at this level, but everyone has to put cash in. It was just a principle we agreed. We agreed on, myself and my agent in the agency, and it was one that we agreed on. We felt we had the right package to put it together, and it meant that we didn't take. There's several kind of key brands that would have brought. If you're looking at 75 to 80K budget, you get in 15K worth of gear. It suddenly is actually a valuable part. If you're looking at a 750K budget, it's not worth the hassle of managing those smaller brands.
Correct.
At that level. So it's just a different picture. I've got it was more about, there's the people who I would like, gear wise, it's kind of it's either these ones or nothing at all because you're not going to, there's certain stuff like you will not substitute. Yeah. There's stuff, even if they were, Fjallraven is you probably know the outdoor brand.
Yeah.
I will, whether they sponsor me or not, that's what we're taking for our apparel. This stuff is amazing. It's just bulletproof. Hopefully they'll pay for it.
Give them a shout out.
Fjallraven, I absolutely love you guys. Your stuff is bulletproof.
Is it actually bulletproof?
It's snake proof, and that's probably more critical.
And when you talk to them, you'll be like, I've already mentioned one on a podcast.
Absolutely, there you go. You've
got that plug already going.
As well, yep.
We're more than happy to when you go through that phase where you're going through the raising, let me know. I'm on board. I'm happy to help people that are exploring, and even if you want from a publicity point of view, if I'm talking about your story and all the rest of it, again,
I love that.
Yeah,
and from your adventurous point of view, obviously, you're not any more than welcome, but kind of obligated to come and join me on the trip for a portion.
I would do that.
Yeah,
I'm there.
There's two really good sections, right? There's two really good sections.
Is it one where there's no AKs chasing?
Can I go to that
one? You can either come. What would be really exciting, what would be fun, would you come out at the beginning of the trip, and we fly in. It starts in the river. Well, there's the Congo is just. If you look at the tributary network that feeds into the Congo, it looks like, the kind of the veins in your hand or something. But the one we've chosen is the longest tributary. Some people define the source tributary as the one with greatest volume. We've decided it makes more sense if we're walking the length of it. Find the one which is the very longest, and it's literally a dribble of water up in the Zambian highlands. There's a brilliant. If you want to look at a fantastic expedition, it's a guy called Phil Harwood, who's a ex-Royal Marine, who's solo canoed down the Congo River, down that path. And he literally, if you look him up online, there's a little video, you can see this YouTube video. There's a brilliant book describing his trip, but it's a fantastic. He's literally he finds the source of the river, and it's in this bush. It's literally in a bush, and it's just gently bubbling out of the ground, and that is the source of the Congo River right there. And he actually, because he's doing it in a canoe, he has to bush. I don't know how far down the river he has to go before it's actually big enough for him to be able to put his canoe in.
On there, yeah.
But it's pretty amazing, and that's it. It starts there. So you're going up there. You got to find a village. You got to say, "Hey guys, I heard the Congo River starts around here somewhere. Can you point me in the right direction?"
This is sick.
Yeah. Mate, honestly, watch this.
I'll watch it when we're not online, but
it's brilliant. I mean, it's fantastic. And the book is brilliant because it's, what's so good about that is that.
Have you thought of like reaching out to people like Foxy did from SAS Who Dares Wins? Just did, what did he do? He did the whole Yukon River.
Did he?
Yeah. And
didn't they, a team of them did...
there was bears there. There's, Yukon River. They did that.
Yeah. Foxy's done a few there because he did something mad with a couple of Marine, I swear...
They did the
Atlantic, didn't they, or something?
Yeah,
some others.
And Savagery
did Everest.
No, he did the thing where it was in that bloody rowing boat, wasn't he? He documented it.
On Channel 4, it's called Mutiny.
Mutiny. That's Mutiny. He was taking the old captain's route where they got overthrown, didn't they?
Was it Blythe?
Yeah, Captain Blythe. Bloody, you got a good memory there, mate. Captain Blythe. Yeah, where he got overthrown by all the support staff on the boat, and he got thrown off with about 8 officers. And they was in a rowing boat in the middle of the ocean, and they had to find their way to shore. Amazing. And it's about his journey of reliving
like 3,000 miles, wasn't it? Like that.
Yeah, it was. And they were in a rowing boat. There's sharks coming up. They're dodging reefs at night.
Yeah.
Crazy. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you reached out to someone like him and said, fancy joining him on a 3,000 mile hike. He might not join the whole stretch, but
the part. I tell you, since like most people, you don't you want to talk. If you're going to talk about anything. Like, and I think it's a very British thing. Like, you just don't talk too much about what you like. It's not. Yes. The goal is to try and do something. My goal is. I'm not going to extrapolate to anyone. My goal would be to do something good and basically keep your trap shut, right? And the weird thing about going out and pitching an expedition you haven't done yet is you have to go out there and say, "Oh, I'm going to go and do this." And I've been doing this, and it's been, and the fact that I've done it's been taking such a long time is that almost come back and all I want to do is just kind of quietly go off and get it done. Just shut up and go and get it done. And I still got to, to an extent, I have to still kind of talk it up about just because I've got to get this little bit of money in place. But I've almost deliberately just kind of kept a fairly low profile with it, not reached out to a lot of people because I kind of just want to go and just get on with it.
You don't want to sit there.
I was amazed looking at your social media and I was like, this guy's doing this. And I was like, unless you delve quite deep, you wouldn't. Like, it's not like, man, we're doing this, it's start date. It's not, you're not thrown out there.
Well, to be honest, I've gone, you look at the dates and I stopped. I mean, I say, you know what, I can't be doing with, it just kind of, I just felt like it was running, I didn't have anything to say, literally. I felt like I didn't have anything to say. And at that point, I think there is now an industry, now with a definite departure date, I think I'd love to delve back into that. But there's definitely part of me that thought, I just can't keep talking. I just can't keep talking. I hate the talk, I admire people who
small talk is shit. How are you? Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. No one wants to talk about something that I'm going to this, and then it never fucking happens. And then you just want to get on, do it, and talk about it afterwards. Because then you've got the experiences, you've done it, you've actually got something to share. That whole build up of the potential. Well, I like though what you just said. You probably haven't even realised. You said, I do have my departure date. I'm going, and I said to you, have you raised the money? You're like, no. But in your mind, you're already there.
The difference is knowing through the business I can fund it myself.
Yes.
That's the thing. And I think being able to go to potential sponsors saying we are going now, it's just a whole different conversation.
We are going, do you want to be a part?
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's just like, look, it's 25K. They say, we'll take a punt on it. It doesn't work out. It hasn't sunk our budget for the year.
No.
And it will just disappear. Whatever, $500,000. Like that's my job.
People ask a lot of questions.
It's a board level decision as well, and I know at least 2 major potential sponsors where they were super excited at every level up to marketing director. I went to the board, they nixed it there. 2 big brands, and they were it's great. It was a really good fit. It just made total logical sense, and they didn't disagree with it. But they said, you know what?
Just not for us.
This is not for us. You just why take the chance? We can go and spend it on something that's maybe not quite as exciting on the top of it, but we don't have the risk on the downside, and that's and you get that. Whereas, and that's why we had 2 failed Everest expeditions. Not one of our sponsors quibbled over, what happened. They understood the risk. It was it wasn't a chump change, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's hard to argue the fact that 16 people died. You can't exactly. You guys winked out. There's nothing like that.
There was no sort of it's
factual.
Yeah. And I think and what was actually a really good takeaway from that was actually that myself, Mike, and Steve, who was the core team, Steve being the Kenyan client, Mike being a really good mate of mine who married the girl I ran away to Africa with. I was his best man at his wedding, so trust me, it all worked out really well. It worked out really well.
I was going to ask that, but I was like, were you invited? I thought I was really harsh. You weren't just invited, you were the best man.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good call.
That was a great speech.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was fun. If I'm sure people can hear me through my tears.
Of joy, of course.
Yeah, joy. Exactly. I'm
so
happy for the fucking bride.
Yeah.
I went to Africa.
My God.
So, so we sat down and we there's, if you do read about Everest, there are these stories about people who have just shed their humanity in their quest for the summit. They're quite often overblown. But we just sat down and said, no matter what, we want to do the right thing. If that means we don't summit this year, then that's the way it is. We want to walk away with our not just a reputation, not about reputation. It's about in ourselves, the 3 of us sitting here, that we can look ourselves in the eye and say we did the right thing there. And so we had this horrendous morning, and we were sitting there. Mike and I, Steve was still asleep because he slept all the time. Mike and I were sitting out having coffee on a beautiful day. And just saw this huge avalanche come off. There's a big hanging glacier there, and just massive lump of ice just came down onto the ice wall there. And I thought, that doesn't look good. It's a dreadful time. Couldn't have happened at the worst time. And just had a radio there. Just put it on turned it on and listened to the comms on there. And then instantly just knew that it had just been the worst possible. Just couldn't have been worse. Just hit this party right in the middle of them. And
you just witnessed that whole thing.
And then we just said, it's we thought, okay, look, chances are it's never happened. There's no precedent for a season being cancelled. It has huge, from top level down, it has huge financial implications for Nepal. It's a huge revenue earner for them, so that they're not going to officially cancel a season without huge pressure.
Was there rescue teams and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. It's one of the, there's such camaraderie up there. We just sat. There's nothing really we could do. We just sat and kept out of the way. We went on a really small team. We hired our own. We had 3 guides.
Were you far away from it?
Probably half a mile, maybe. It's hard to tell. I can't remember that line of sight. Not far. We were quite close to the snout of the icefall. The Everest Base Camp is massively, 800 meters or something long. We're right up close to where the icefall comes down. But our guides, all the kind of Sherpas, all the guides immediately down tools, and everyone just legged it up there to help. The people who were up above came down. The helis were flying in, and there was a very experienced guy, Kiwi, basically expedition leader, super experienced, who basically coordinated the whole thing. Everyone just down tools and just went for it. But there's such a close community. You've got, there were people whose cousin, our small team of 3 Sherpa guides, they lost if I remember, one cousin, one uncle was killed. And just people that known they've climbed with for years, best mates. And
community almost.
It is. I mean, like,
did they know they were sat below like a...
You just know. It's what they talk. I mean, it's like they talk about it being the most dangerous part of the route because it's just Russian roulette. Just Russian, just bad luck. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Did you have to set camp there?
Not saying they were walking through it.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah. So they're walking through and it's,
what's the chances of that?
Well, it's basically, you can decrease the risk by moving fast and you get up, you go you never walk through after, they were right towards the end of the window, but they're also very close to the top. You should be out there by 6 a.m. or something. As soon as it starts warming up, ice starts melting, things start moving. Much less chance when it's frozen solid at night. So it doesn't happen very often, but these huge, it's almost like imagine like a huge rotting teeth of ice in the icefall, and just inevitably, and the guys that set the route will find the best route and possibly the only route through it, and it's different each year, but it's always going to be threatened by this cliff here. 10 minutes later, would have just hit an empty rope. 10 minutes earlier, hit an empty rope. It just literally just came straight through this group, and so we kind of knew. I think
was there any survivors or not?
Of that group, I honestly can't remember. Like of that group, whether tail ends or front people or tail ends who didn't get hit, but 16 were killed, and. We didn't really think or talk much for the first 6 hours. Everyone was just watching everything, keeping out of the way. If you couldn't help, just keep out of the way.
Sometimes that is helping, isn't it? Just out
exactly. There was nothing we could do, and we knew that the best thing was just don't get in the way of a massive rescue operation. Rescue, and in the end, it was mainly body recovery. But by the afternoon, things had settled down a bit. Bodies had been recovered. Everyone would have been accounted for, and we just sat around and said, honestly, guys, there is no way this is going to close things down. This isn't like other days. Nothing's ever happened like this. Had it been a mixed group, maybe it would have been different. The fact that it hit to the heart of the whole Sherpa community. We said what we said is we will let our guides take the lead. Whatever they want to do, we will do. If they say fuck it, we'll crack on, we'll do it, regardless of what happens on the bigger picture. But that night they came. That next morning, that night they were just incoherent, so upset. And the next morning they came in and we talked and they said, look, please don't ask us to carry on. Like they would have done had we said. And we said no.
It's more like our respect.
Yeah, and we were out of there in 2 hours. We packed up and we legged it down and got out, and that was it. It was an easy decision. And in the end, it was moot because it got closed down anyway. But we'd made that decision based on the fact that we'd rather come back next year with, kind of the way that we.
Did that not put you off?
Honestly, it's weird. Like it feels very. Do you just think psychologically it's just very? I just don't engage with it as a thought, and it's not being callous. I can't stand that, but it's just we would have carried on. I think if they had said that's fine, we would have carried on and probably walked through there the next day, or whatever it would have been. But it's weird. It's a really weird frame of mind, to be honest, because it's a very frightening environment. It's there is a real sense that. Something bad could happen at any time. So it's definitely you're very conscious of it and very scared. And even day to day, and even when you're in the safety of base camp, although the year after, a friend of mine was killed in base camp by an avalanche that was set off by this earthquake. So even there, actually, it turned out you weren't really that safe. But even there, you've always got the sense of like the potential for altitude sickness, and you never really feel safe. But there's also a part of you that just kind of, you bracket off that.
You understand, you go into it understanding there is an inherent risk that you're in a more dangerous scenario than.
But there's also that thing. There's also that piece which must just be human psychology. Must be what soldiers take into war. It's not going to happen to me.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just thinking. It sounds like
a slight bit of arrogance. It sounds bad saying a slight bit of arrogance is actually not a bad thing.
It's totally logical because that your skill or lack of it is not going to that unlucky bullet is not going to stop it.
It's the same as you look at you can compare it to an IED, a roadside bomb. At the end of the day, it doesn't if it's hidden, like there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes it's just sheer luck and sheer misfortune that it hits you. And it's the same thing. Like what you were saying there, it sounds like I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. It's like you're in an environment that is dangerous. Something horrendous has just happened. You know yourself, you have a purpose to try and complete this. Is it you have to make a logical decision, right? Yes, okay, something unfortunate happened, but do I have to carry on and do this, or is the right move to withdraw and then reassess, re-engage, and then come back?
Let's take the Congo. This is honestly, talk about. I would have to be dead before I didn't complete this thing.
Why is that?
Because I think what am I going to come back to? At what point do you just make a stand and say, I'm going to finish this? Now, what point in your life do you say, and what better opportunity are you going to have to say, this is a thing I do not back down from? And what point, if you're not here, where?
Yeah.
And it's that thing. It's like, and again, it's easy to say this now, and I'm conscious that things look very different if you've just had you just lost your hand in a machete, someone's just chopped your hand off. But at least in your mind, you think, if I can get through it, I'm going to keep going. And that's when you look at people who've done things and they've got through some incredible stuff if you've gone into it with the right mindset. Worst case scenario, you imagine, okay, I've got a team of 4. What happens if someone gets killed? Whether, they might drown, they might get sick, they might get, hit by a charging hippo. In my mind, we grieve and we carry on. That's how I look at it. And I will prepare them, if something happens to me. You make a decision, guys, whatever you want to do, but do not stop on my account.
What you said earlier about the whole, if you get bitten and all the rest of it, just shoot me kind of thing.
Well, it's why, genuinely, it's very few things that I actually, in terms of risk, there's very few things that I engage with psychologically, particularly because of this trip. Whatever risks, in terms of how to minimize those risks, in my mind is wait until you're 3 months out, really, whatever it is, and then start to engage with it. Right now, you've got to fund the bloody thing. Right? Yeah. So it's almost I know there's the risks. I'll deal with it in turn. Don't waste mental energy on it now. But having read this horrendous article about this poor scientist who died, it hit me viscerally, and it was just something. It's a bit like things that scared me on climbing. I had a very nasty episode with what I thought was pulmonary edema, where you can't breathe.
Yeah.
Your lungs fill with fluid. And it turns out it wasn't, but it was absolutely terrifying for about 12 seconds. But I thought I was dying. It was really weird. Or getting hit by, getting buried in an avalanche. Honestly, there's two things, because they're both you're suffocating, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's why viscerally, the snakes per se don't bother me in the slightest. Nice fuzzy anaconda or whatever, because they're not going to poison you. It's just the thought of these things, and that for me has always been the super visceral one that I do have nightmares about. The other stuff, why I think fear. Fear is great. There's a great sort of saying that fear, let fear be your guide. And I think I interpret that to mean let fear kind of motivate you to do whatever. So wear good boots, get Kevlar laced, get Kevlar, trousers with little bits of Kevlar wound through it. Think, let it be an impulse to think these things through and work out how to mitigate these risks.
Use logic.
And there's the climbing. There's climbing. They talk about objective risk, which is the risk you cannot completely eradicate. Right. So the Everest, the Icefall. These guys, I have no idea how many summits they had between them. They probably had 30, 40 summits of Everest between them, right? So they all were bloody good climbers, super experienced, and it killed 16 of them because they were just incredibly unlucky. But there's nothing they could have done, as far as I know, that could have lessened that risk. They just got shitty unlucky. So I think that's the point as well, is accepting, and it's accepting a degree of objective risk. There is a great climber, I can't remember his name. He's an American climber. He's the first American climber to climb all 14 8,000 meter peaks without oxygen, and he'd done 13 of them. And there's this mountain called Annapurna where there is a huge degree of objective risk, and no matter how good you are, you still have to basically run this avalanche gauntlet. And you can get better, you can reduce the risk by timing it right and doing it fast and fit. But he was a super, despite what he did, he's a super cautious climber. He really sort of pushed the concept of the summit should be the goal is always get down safely. And the climb he always actually really regretted was where he pushed on beyond what he should have known to have been a stopping point on K2. He summited and got down okay, but he knew he was way, way, way out over, on the end of a limb. And so on this climb, he almost said, I might not do my 14 because this is beyond what I consider to be reasonable degree of risk, because he'd agreed, and that's that risk he couldn't reduce in any way. So you go into it and you say, yes, you get you get unlucky. We do everything right, and you can still get unlucky. But we can still do everything right. You can still do everything. You know, it's the classic one. You can do everything right and get hit by a bloody car and crossing the road. And it's not as simple as that, because, you know, it's a very, very low risk of doing that. And, you know, I think it's potentially where the seriousness is. Like, if something does go wrong, you are very isolated. And, you know, so we can't, unfortunately, like, there is no solution to a snake bite, really. I mean, there are some.
Are you held accountable for that? Like, did you, if she shot you? Like, do you know what
I mean, she wouldn't tell anyone.
Oh, right. So it's just.
Well, she can tell someone like
cut this bit. Cut this bit.
We know that. I mean, it was done. It was obviously semi-joking, but at the same time, it was, you know,
it's probably the humane thing to do, though.
Yeah, it was honestly. It just, of course, you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to be shot, and you wouldn't want to die at all. But it was just, for me, that's like almost like the worst case scenario. Like, you were lying there, actually quite okay, but you can feel it, because it was the way this doctor described. Like, I don't know. His whole decision making was really weird. So the whole thing's a bit odd. But he got, so basically what happened. He got up in the morning, and he went into their base camp tent, and there'd been guys out at night collecting snakes, and they put them in these big canvas sacks, and they get sorted and whatever they do with them, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, but there's, you know, the procedure is you always visually identify what's in the snake, in the bloody bag, right, first. But he asked his colleague what's in there. He said it's an X, which is non-venomous. So he just stuck his hand in to grab the snake, and it bit him. And it wasn't X. it was its close cousin Y, which looked very similar but was deadly poisonous. So he got bitten. But then he waited half an hour to see whether it was, you know, because there's a much lower, like a fairly low percentage of bites are actually inject venom. Yeah. So he waited to see whether the venom was actually having an effect, and he could feel it. He can feel it.
Yeah,
coming
going
through
your arm. It's almost like when you go on like local or something.
Yes,
like
exactly.
That. Yeah.
And then the whole setup, like they had no, so like I told you, they had to artificially respirate the guy once he lost the ability to breathe himself. But they had no, it would normally be standard practice to have an artificial lung there. So, I mean, a mechanical lung, so at least it could be done methodically. They had no anti-venom. They had, and it was very much, you know, exacerbated by bad luck. So they sent a runner 8 miles to the nearest military base to get an evac. From there, they would not launch a helicopter until they could confirm his status. So the guy had to run 8 miles back, say, yeah, he's dying. Had to run 8 miles back. By the time he got back to the base, a massive storm came in and grounded everything. They got back eventually with some decrepit old mechanical lung, and they kept him going for, you know, so they kept him going. I think he basically lost the ability to breathe after 4 hours, and he died after 20. So 16 hours, this team were keeping him alive. And the guy that wrote the article was a weird little, even like his particular personal horror story. So he was trying to save his friend and colleague there. And it was the 11th of September, 2001. This is an American team. So he had just heard on the shortwave radio what had happened in New York. He didn't tell anyone else on the team because he knew they needed to focus on trying to save their colleagues. Yeah, so he was there trying to deal with this horror going back in the States while dealing with this horror in front of him. And in the end, the guy eventually, I guess the system of the body broke down, but it was just the way, it was something about it was just so, because you hear about, he died from snake bite, and you've got to imagine, you kind of just drift off to sleep as if you're having an anesthetic. And it was just one of those things. It really kind of, you know, there's
free of them.
Yeah, and you get bitten by a crocodile. It's, you know, you get eaten by a crocodile. You kind of imagine it's going to be pretty short and brutal, right? You get charged by a hippo, it's going to be pretty short and brutal. It was something about it. It just really kind of affected me.
It wasn't. So especially the other two, it's actually the physical attack.
Yeah.
Whereas what actually happens is you're in essence you've been poisoned, and you are dying of.
And that's it to start with. You're fine. Like, you're sitting there.
Yeah. Cheers. And thanks.
Yeah. And there's a friend of mine went on a very high class safari recently, and she was chatting to they were out in the bush in Kenya, and talking to the ranger that was kind of in charge, and they had antivenom there, and he said, you know, we haven't got a lot of it, but it's for clients. And so she says, what happens if you get bitten? He goes, well, to be honest, mate, I'll just go and sit under that tree and light a cigarette and wait for the end. It's like, oh, bloody
Jesus, crazy.
I know, right?
For customers only.
There was I saw this horrendous. Oh my God, I saw this horrendous. I don't know how did I get onto it? Oh, there's something that came off my YouTube probably because it knows I'm thinking about snakes, and it was this. It was these There was these Vietnamese guys, and these little guys, just wearing like a pair of shorts in this sort of village, little jungle, kind of fairly jungly village, and they were chasing this probably 8-foot cobra, and he kept dragging its tail. I thought he was just like playing with it, right? And he kept dragging its tail, and it turned around, and then it kind of went into a tree, and he went in. I guess they were going to eat it, but it was absolutely massive, and he kept chasing, and he grabbed it. And he had it holding its head, in one hand here, and the whole thing was wrapped around his body and like down his leg. And he was walking and giggling away, laughing like a madman. And I said they didn't. That was it. And they probably took it inside, chopped his head off, and stuck it in a pot. But it was just
how they did it, how they picked it up, and everything. Have you seen the kids? Have you seen this? I can't remember what I was watching. There was these kids, and they're talking in their native language. It's got all subtitles on, and there's like pointing this hole. Anyway, this tarantula gets out, and I'm talking like this big. Next thing you know, these kids couldn't be older than 9, 10. Just pushed down on the top of it, picked its legs up like that, wrapped it around with string, and then they put it around their belt. and they must have had, at the end of it, they had about 6 of these tarantulas round. They're blowing them because the tarantula was letting off its hairs. They kept blowing them, and they're just like giggling, and they're tying them around their belt. And I'm not joking. They must have had about 6 tarantulas all around their belts. And then it just cuts to them cooking them over a fire. And it must have been like 8 to 10. I swear, I'll send you the link. I was like, I cannot believe that this is actually happening.
Well, from the snakes, like spiders, I've got no issue with spiders whatsoever, because there's no spider that will kill a healthy human male. I got bitten by a redback in Australia, because I was living. I went out there during my university to on a year in industry, and got a job as a tax consultant, which is, you probably from 1 hour talking to me, you realise was probably a pretty bad decision. Lasted about 5 weeks. Had no money, so of course I ended up living in the back of a car, which then broke down, and then police took it, and then I broke into this. Oh, I didn't break. I just opened the window of it was like where they kept the mowers for the park, and would sleep in this place, and then first. I woke up the first night in this place, in this mower place, quite comfortable night, and then there was just these redbacks just bloody everywhere in this shed, and I had this little thing, this weird little kind of bump there, which got bigger and bigger. And I went to the doctor and he goes, "Oh yeah, mate, he's got bitten by a redback." It's like, "What's going to happen? I'm going to die." It's like, "Don't be ridiculous."
So your Congo trip,
yeah.
Right. You said
we're going to have to wrap up, so let's go for the next 5.
Team of 4,
correct.
3,000 miles.
Correct.
1 year.
Correct.
Have you got any form of security?
Probably case by case, area
by
area.
You're not taking. You set guys across with you. You're not taking security with you as such.
No.
It'll be a case of you get somewhere right. We probably need something here.
I come hell or high water. I'm going to be armed in the Congo.
Oh, so this was one of my next questions.
Oh, yeah.
It was a case of, are you going to take something to defend yourself from people and or animals?
100%. Yeah. For sure.
Is it easy to get firearms out there?
Well, it's a weird one, because Congo has, ironically, really quite strong gun laws. So it'll be something we'll do legally. But yeah, you could definitely find something. You could find anything, for sure. Human and animal. And it's one of those things like, chance are you... I literally, joke aside, I carried a massive knife everywhere on all these bike trips where I've been by myself, and never once in any way, shape or form been close to needing it to defend myself. But you only have to, you only have to be right once.
Yeah.
In fact, there was one night in a field in Iran, and I just pulled into this old cornfield, and I'd settled down for the night. It was late when I pulled in, and I just kind of put my sleeping bag down. And I thought, I can't be bothered to get my knife out. And then in the middle of the night, I heard something rustling around me, and I didn't. It was nothing. I'm probably a dog or something. But I do remember thinking, "You're a bloody idiot." Like, the one night you might need it.
Yeah,
it's in your bag. Yeah, so it's the same thing there. Like, chances are you wouldn't need it. Though, if you read Phil Harwood's book, like, he talks about how he bought this old decrepit, like, literally homemade shotgun, and you just have it. There were times when you definitely felt it was being scoped out, and you just have it sitting there on the the stern of his boat, and it deterred people. So it's one of those things, and it's one of those things like, if you've got them, do you provoke something? But honestly, I'd rather have something and not need it than find yourself in a situation going, "God, I wish I had something now." So it's one of those ones that'll be, again, it has to be very carefully done, because it'd be weird in a place where there is obviously such amount of firearms around that you end up getting banged up for breaking a gun law or something.
I know you're not sort of, like you say, you're not big on social media, you're not putting yourself out there, but as sort of word travels, is there any risk, for you being taken as in like immediate, like as
you delaying the footage,
anything like that?
That's usually so. The bigger you get on social, they usually delay the footage. Say if you're in a certain location, they'll do it like a week later.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's probably dramatic risk on that. There's much less dramatic risk, which is that as we sort of tell our story from there, particularly in terms of the mission piece, is how we frame it so that we don't end up pissing off more as kind of Congolese government, and rather undramatically just kind of get booted out of the country. I don't think it'd be anything more than that. It wouldn't be, if you got arrested, it'd be a great story, But if you just get shown to the border, it's like, oh Christ, this is going to be, that really screws things up. So it was definitely a long discussion and ongoing discussion with, we have such great Congolese partners. The whole thing is, and that's what I think where our great strength as an expedition lies, is through various contacts. Like we had all our in-country contacts are amazing. So in terms of how to finesse this, like, they know it in a way that I don't. Yeah. But it's very much finessing that messaging. In terms of delaying it, yes and no. I don't think on a local level there's a massive degree of risk because there just isn't that level of, like, no one's going to be following us in the next 10K. I'm not massively worried about that. And I think the imperative of telling a really contemporary, like a really kind of contemporaneous story is probably more important. But so all these things, they kind of be adaptive. Like if you're finding that is an issue, then you can definitely adapt to that. One thing which we've got, which is kind of quite a fun little asset that we ended up picking up, was a friend of a friend, his company installs and maintains cell phone towers across Congo, and he's responsible for, like, I think Congo at the time had like 8,000 cell phone towers, and he was responsible for like 5,000 of them. And you can imagine, like, the isolated areas these things are put up in. It had some incredible photos of towers being brought in by canoe, and then everything's been brought in broken down to be able to be man carried or woman carried, most of it. But one thing they come with, each tower has a bloke with a motorbike, and a mobile phone. And so he gave us this list with all of them had sat-nav references, inputted the whole lot into Google Maps, and took about 150 odd that were close to the route. So one great bit of local intelligence that we've got is being able to call ahead and say, look, mate, it's something like that's going to know exactly what's going on in their sort of 50K radius, what's going on. And it's very much going to be a mixture of, we've got to get high level intelligence is quite easy. And to be able to say, like, it's a way kind of go, is there Ebola? Like, okay. But you could literally be France, you're not France, so you could be from here to Portsmouth away from the nearest case of Ebola. It's no risk. Or are you literally walking straight through a town where it's been there? It's having the big picture intelligence, but then it has to be married with literally what does the next 10K look like? What does the next 100K look like? Because that's the reality and the speed with which things can change. It's why yes, of course I'm aware of what's broadly speaking going on in the Congo, but I'm not going to start looking. I mean, it's going to take 3 months. It's going to take 2 months to get from the start of the river in to get to the Congolese border. Yeah. I'll start looking at what's happening in the Congo when we're about sort of halfway towards the border. Because at that point, I mean, there's no point looking at it particularly now. I mean, you can just get an idea of the broad trends. And there are certain areas which are not en route, which are always going to be kind of fractious. But really, it's about, something could happen literally that quickly. That means, right, we cannot go through there. We need to box around it. We need to cross over into back into Zambia, we need to cross over into Republic of Congo or whatever it might be, or we need to, bugger off around here based on something that's happened in that week. So I think it's having that really kind of, big picture down to literally what's going to happen today. Yeah.
I understand if you can't give an answer like on the quote, but are you having any sort of like UK governmental support or anything like that from it? Or
100% not. None. They wouldn't touch us with a barge pole. No, I pitched them. Absolutely pitched them. No,
really?
Yeah, couldn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, bite me. Yeah, I mean, seriously, I get it. I get it.
Not a steak.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's a weird one. I pitched the brilliant. I really love the campaign. The British. The
I was just thinking for like an intelligence basis. Like in updates. General. Situational awareness of what's going on, giving you a simple battle picture. A case of, look, this is. The Congo isn't a great place right now. This is what's happening. Look, if you're going to do it, fine. We can't directly spoil you, but look,
I think I totally understand their position. Like you read on the website there. No travel. Like, we cannot condone travel to any part of, and that has to be the line. And anything which blurs that line undermines their core mission, which is to keep British citizens safe. And I totally understand that. Fair enough. I do think on the other hand, it's like, no, mate, this is the British expedition going to do a world first. Kind of give it a bit of a shout out. So I don't know, we'll see. My chances are, we'll go and, obviously go and pay a courtesy visit when we're in Kinshasa, say hello, at least establish presence there. The actual intelligence they can provide, I've got other there's other sources for it. And I'd say I do understand it. It's at that level they've got to stick to a message.
Guns almost, aren't they? Really?
Literally.
Got one last question because we're at 1 hour 53 minutes.
No!
Yeah,
that's me. I'm good.
You're good. You've done it. Any final points you want to mention to people that are listening to your story or anything like that?
I just want to sort of reiterate. My core message is just like live that life adventurously. Whatever it is, if any part of your gut is saying do it, like listen to it, because you can be damn sure by the time you knock another 10 years out, you wish you had. I think that is worth really reflecting, and if you do it, go full out at it.
Okay. And for people that are going to be as excited as I am for this journey, how can they follow your journey? What's your social media? What's your website? Things like that.
Yeah, so the website's walkthecongo.com, and the link's off there onto social. As Ben pointed out, like social's dead quiet at the moment, but it's going to be my personal the expedition one will be a maelstrom from when we're sort of 3 months out.
It's dead content in regards to you not posting anything at the moment, but guys, stay tuned because it's going to be an awesome journey of which we hope to be more involved with and document as much as we possibly can to show our support.
Yeah, I'd love to go out and do a bit of it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? Yeah, it'd be cool. Guys, make sure that you check out my latest post on Instagram, and I will have more details of how you can go and follow on social. And make sure that you leave your comments of just what you think of this podcast, because I think this is probably one of the most epic podcasts that we've done in regards to a crazy story and journey. And I think it's just going to get even more exciting. I mean, when we look at this after the journey, we're going to have to do an after one now. I want to know what you was lifting out there, what kind of tank mines and all the rest of it. God knows what you've been up to, and whether or not you did end up getting bitten by a small snake and panicking or whatever. We want to know. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, and stay tuned for the next one. Any final words?
No, thanks, Sam. Ben, great to meet you guys.
It's incredible. What you're planning is incredible.
Perfect, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next episode.